North at Dittman, Indiana. Stalled vehicle in a center traffic lane loaded up from Lakewood Rosemead. Somebody broken down Atwater Village, Los Feliz on the 5 South at Los Feliz Boulevard. They're in the center divider. That has slowed the drive as far back as Burbank Boulevard. Granada Hills, Sylmar, it's troubles on the 5 North at Roxford. A wreck in the second lane from the left there. Looks like somebody might have struck a tire that was in traffic lanes. Cerritos, the top from earlier, still working the 91 East at Norwalk Boulevard. Carpool lane blocked with a solo spin out. That vehicle's facing sideways. We are busy here from at least the 605.
Summit Racing wants you to gear up your truck or Jeep for your next off-road camping adventure. With millions of parts in stock, you'll find off-road and outdoor essentials so you can camp confidently and comfortably. SummitRacing.com. Everything you need for anything you drive.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
History is not on the side of the Miami Heat. 36 teams have been down 3-1 in the NBA Finals, and only one has fought back to win the championship. LeBron did it in 2016 when he was with Cleveland. He helped the Cavs bounce back and beat Golden State for the title. The Denver Nuggets are up 3-1 on Miami, and they're at home tonight for Game 5. Everything is in the Nuggets' favor to close it out and win the first championship in the franchise's 56-year history. Tip-off tonight at 5:30 on ABC. The WNBA is considering major changes in how their teams travel after Brittany Griner was harassed over the weekend inside the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. The slumping Dodgers are back in L.A. after a 2-4 road trip. They are 2-6 in their last 8 games. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We begin top story with late breaking news.
Is it going to succeed, yes or no?
I think it's going to succeed. It's going to succeed.
Can you believe it?
Y'all did it.
KBLA Talk 1580 is about to celebrate its 2nd anniversary on Juneteenth, and no terrible twos around here. We couldn't be more excited about all the good news we'll be announcing soon, including the launch of some new shows to keep giving you more of what you've been looking for.
Come on!
Smart radio for smart people. Hey, it's our celebration, but you get all the gifts. We'll be giving away fresh merch, swag bags, and a chance for you to join the private invitation-only, star-studded music and dance till you drop, food and drink galore 2nd anniversary celebration. To stay in the know about the 2nd anniversary details, download the KBLA Talk 1580 app right now. Don't miss out on your chance to be a winner. At KBLA Talk 1580, when we come forward, we're bringing everybody with us.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
For the man, too much for the man, he couldn't make it. So he's leaving the life he's come to know. Ooh. He said he's going back to find, ooh, what's left of his world, the world he left behind not so long ago. He's leaving on that midnight train to Georgia.
There was a time some 30 plus years ago when I thought that things were not going to work out for me here in L.A. after I'd moved here to work for Tom Bradley, the late great mayor of this city. I got here to take my job, and the city had a hiring freeze on. And I had to survive a year and a half, almost 2 years, waiting for that hiring freeze to lift because of the bad economy during the Reagan era before I could take the job that the mayor had offered me, for which I had moved to Los Angeles. And there were a number of times I could hear Gladys Knight and the Pips warming up. L.A. proved too much for the man. He couldn't make it. He's leaving the life he's come to know. Thankfully, things eventually worked out, and here I am on KBLA Talk 1580, 30-some years later. Won't he do it? Won't he do it? In this hour, let me say right quick, we're playing the music of Gladys Knight in case you've tuned in just now. We're playing Gladys Knight all 3 hours of our program today because June is Black Music Month, and every day on this program we are featuring the music of a particular iconic African-American artist, and certainly Gladys Knight fits into that category. So all 3 hours of our program today, some of the best of Gladys Knight's library right here on KBLA Talk 1580 as we celebrate Black Music Month in the month of June. That said, in this hour, I am pleased to be joined by, and I've been waiting on this, love this brother, pleased to be joined by Pulitzer Prize-winning author Hector Tobar for a conversation about the 21st century Latino experience and identity in his new book, Our Migrant Souls, a meditation on race and the meanings and myths of Latino. He navigates the complex landscape surrounding the term Latino, unraveling its profound meanings and debunking prevalent myths. If you are like me, then you've had all kinds of questions over the last number of years about what term to use and how not to be offensive. Is it Latino? Is it Hispanic? Is it Chicano? Is it Latinx? And I've been taken to task by my Hispanic, Latino, Chicano, Latinx friends, depending on who they are, for using certain terminology. So I'm confused. Enter Hector Tobar in this hour, drawing from his own personal experiences as the son of Guatemalan immigrants and the stories shared with him by his Latinx students. He confronts racist ideas head on and offers a profound exploration of the intricate layers of racial and ethnic identity in the contemporary United States of America. And I am pleased to welcome to the airways of KBLA Talk 1580 our friend and brother Hector Tobar. Hector, how are you, sir?
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on your radio program.
Man, it's good to have you on. Thank you for your time. Glad to have you. Glad we have an hour to sort of unpack this. Let me just start. Let me start broad, and we'll start wide, and we'll narrow as we move through this hour. The rationale, the reasoning, the motivation for writing a book like this in this contemporary moment was what, Hector?
Well, we have been living through this national conversation about race for several years now, thanks especially to the Black Lives Matter movement. Mm-hmm. And there's been a lot of growing awareness. I live in this Northeast Los Angeles neighborhood that I would say is maybe about 50% white. And during the George Floyd spring, my white neighbors were painting Black Lives Matter on their driveways and on their garages. But that national conversation about race didn't really talk about the way that Latino people, and especially Latino immigrants, and especially brown-skinned Latino immigrants, fit in that race scheme of the United States. Mm-hmm. And to me, as a person, son of immigrants, longtime native resident of Los Angeles, I've seen the hatred and the xenophobia directed towards our people. And I felt it was necessary to address that and to do it in a book that was angry and intelligent, and in the spirit of my, I think of him as a mentor. Never met the man, but in the spirit of James Baldwin, to write that kind of powerful essay like The Fire Next Time that would speak to those young Latino people, especially who are growing up in this time of just racism and hatred and walls and deportations and I really wanted to speak to them.
Yeah. You've said a few things already worth unpacking here. Let me start with this, first of all, Hector. How do, then, you see Latinos fitting into this race scheme in America as you framed it?
Well, yeah, I think that many Americans, thanks to the Fox News type of media coverage about immigration, think of Latino people as either unintelligent, uncivilized, barbarous, dangerous, as this force undermining American society. The dominant images of the Latinos in the media are still that of the maid, or the parking valet, the person who's sort of inconsequential into the story, or of the cartel operative. And those images, of the guy who's killing people like in Breaking Bad or Ozark or all these television shows, or Sicario, this absolutely vicious, brutal force that is threatening to undermine American society and flooding American cities with fentanyl. That's part of the race scheme of and so that is actually the whole, reason for existence now of the Republican Party. That's the defining characteristic of the Republican Party. It's their biggest issue is stopping the immigration of undocumented people, and doing these crazy performances where they transport people by bus or private airplane from Texas and Florida to Massachusetts or California, and treating the bodies of these brown immigrant people as this as actors in a spectacle. So to me, that's the central idea, and also the idea that we basically, Latino is to many people synonymous with labor. They think of us as this laboring caste. That's just part of what we like to do. We like to be in these underpaid minimum wage jobs, picking crops in the fields. Most of the food in this country is supplied by the labor of Latino immigrant workers. And so that's the race idea about us.
We just had a conversation, and if you were listening, you heard it, of course. Just had a conversation in our first hour with Harvard professor Randall Kennedy about a provocative piece he wrote recently for the New York Times, which we unpacked in hour one, a piece called "The Truth Is, Many Americans Just Don't Want Black People to Get Ahead." Here comes Hector Tobar in hour two saying essentially the truth is many Americans just don't want Latinos to get ahead. There's a great deal to unpack in this hour. We talked about black folk last hour. We talked about brown folk this hour. I love it. He said a moment ago he wanted to write a book that expressed his anger and his intelligence. He's done that. But I want to make a distinction when we come forward, at least attempt to make a distinction between being an angry black man or an angry brown man and righteous indignation. They're not exactly the same. Anger and righteous indignation. I want to press Hector on that. I want to talk about these moves by these various governors. Ron DeSantis most recently shipping off immigrants to parts unknown. They arrive not knowing where they are, no jobs, no housing, no nothing. What is that about? And how un-American, how racist is that? This notion of Latinos being the laboring caste, that's worth unpacking. And broadly speaking, this notion that many people still have that we are in a moment where this community, his community, is undermining American society, as he put it. A lot to talk about in this book, Our Migrant Souls, a meditation on race and the meanings and myths of Latino. The author of that text, the Pulitzer Prize winner, Hector Tobar, is our guest in this hour on KBLA Talk 1580.
To talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Lowe's knows the best deals for Dad. That's why this Father's Day, you can shop our best gifts from the brands he loves, like Craftsman, for less. Right now, get a V20 drill or impact driver kit for just $69. And save $50 on a V20 string trimmer and blower combo kit, now only $99. Shop Father's Day deals today, in-store and online. Lowe's knows dads. Lowe's knows home improvement. Valid through 6/14 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
At the United States Postal Service, we're reinventing our network to help keep your business moving. With new shipping options to deliver better value, greater flexibility to conveniently reach your customers, more confident shipping with new informed delivery features, and new electric vehicles for a cleaner, brighter future. Fast, reliable, perfectly orchestrated. The United States Postal Service, delivering for America. Learn more at USPS.com/movingforward.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the Evanon, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's the music of Gladys Knight, all 3 hours of our program today as we celebrate Black Music Month here in the month of June. Gladys sounds as good as ever. Our guest in this hour, sounding as good as ever, is Hector Tobar, author of the new book, Our Migrant Souls, a meditation on race and the meanings and myths of Latino. Hector, a number of things we've already covered that I want to give you a chance to sort of unpack right about now. Let me start with this. You mentioned that you wanted to write a book that was angry and intelligent, not unlike James Baldwin. So many of us, of course, respect the writings and the work and witness of one James Baldwin. But as a writer, a Pulitzer Prize winner no less, you choose your words very carefully. I've often been called an angry black man in my life. I've been called that more than once, I'm certain. And I have found myself at this point in my life saying, well, it's not so much anger as it is a righteous indignation about a variety of things. Again, you're the Pulitzer Prize winner, not me. Am I trying to thin the needle here, or is there something to this distinction between being angry and being righteously indignant?
Oh, absolutely. I think that with anger, you lash out. You express this emotion in perhaps a verbally violent way that isn't necessarily constructive. But with righteous indignation, you appeal to the higher regions of the human intellect. You appeal to our solidarity. You appeal to our love for one another. You're indignant because you think that the United States should be a country of democracy and love and understanding and solidarity, and it isn't. And so you are righteous in your indignation about that. And so I'm very much in that second camp as you are. I think that it's important to deconstruct the language of our oppressors, the ideas of our oppressors. I spend a lot of time in my book asking myself, and I learned this from James Baldwin, what is going on with the white thinking that produces these racist ideas? Where is it coming from? What kinds of insecurities feed it? And I think that that's just a much more constructive and forward-looking way of thinking about the problem.
Yeah. To your point now, if a if a significant slice of the demos, if a significant slice of the American population think that you are here illegitimately, how then do they ever come to terms with your legitimate grievances? Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think the young students that I work with, especially some of the undocumented students I work with, they have this idea that they say, we're winning the culture war.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, on a political level, there's no light on the horizon for any kind of immigration reform that will bring the undocumented into American life, all 11 million people. But on the level of day-to-day life, almost everybody works with, especially in a place like California, lives alongside, or is intermarried into a family with Latino people in it. And people are getting used to the idea of living alongside all these folks with these crazy, Ramirez and Sanchez surnames, and the bandera and the banda music blaring from the pickup trucks, and and now we all have piñatas, of course, in our Christmas, in our birthday parties. And so I think that on a level of just on a community level, on a family level, on a neighborhood level, we have made great progress simply by working and being successful builders of families, builders of businesses sometimes. So I think that is the way we've managed to move forward, and following, of course, the example that African Americans gave us during in their history. Mm-hmm. Look, Jim Crow lasted 100 years, but those were not 100 years of silent, passive, acceptance of an unequal status in life. They were 100 years of many different kinds of struggle. And so I think that we're hoping that the state now in the United American society, where there are 11 million people who don't have any hope of becoming citizens or legal residents, even though they are de facto Americans, we're hoping that doesn't last 100 years like Jim Crow does, although it's already lasted at least one generation.
Yeah. You mentioned generation, you mentioned neighborhoods. Let me pivot here now. It's really not a pivot. It's at the epicenter of your new book, Our Migrant Souls. But let me pass the mic to you and just ask you to share a bit of your personal journey, your personal story as the son of Guatemalan immigrants.
Yes, I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I was raised in East Hollywood, California. That's where I was born, at Los Angeles County General Hospital. My parents came in the 1960s, didn't speak much English, and I was educated entirely in Los Angeles area public schools, and ended up going to the college at the University of California, Santa Cruz. But we grew up in a city that was integrated and filled with possibilities, a city that was just building the freeways, a city, of course, that had histories of racism and discrimination. Unbeknownst to me, as I described in my book, we lived right maybe 150 feet from James Earl Ray, who at that moment was plotting the assassination of Martin Luther King. It also happened that my godfather at that time was an African-American man, a black man from Memphis, who had worked with civil rights organizations to try to integrate the segregated libraries in Memphis, Tennessee, had been arrested and harassed by the police. His mother put him on a bus to Los Angeles, which is where he met my parents. And so in my earliest days growing up, I had these connections to both white supremacy and to African-American struggle. And I think that a lot of Latino kids still grow up that way. I mean, we have, South Los Angeles, South Central Los Angeles is a Black and Latino place. There's a whole subculture now of Blaxican families, kids who've grown up in these mixed race families. And so that's the Los Angeles that I was born into and that so many Latino people are born into.
To the story of your godfather, I'm bouncing around here, but I know you'll stay with me. And we're going to get later in this hour, of course, into this conversation that is about decoding this term Latino. But to the story of your godfather, your black godfather, being put on a bus from Memphis out to here, what do you make of these governors in various states putting Latinos on buses and shipping them to parts unknown. I'm beyond troubled by it. To the word you used earlier, it's a spectacle as I see it. But what do you make of it, Hector?
Right. It's a theater that they've constructed to prove to their base that they are these macho warriors against illegal immigration. Mm-hmm. And they're responding to the fears of people who have these deep insecurities. I say in my book that it's no accident that that so many people in this country have this obsession with undocumented people, because now if you're a working class person or a middle class person, you have to document your life all the time. We have our credit ratings, we have all of these ways in which we're measured. In which our worthiness is measured as consumers. We could end up in debt court. We have to document our lives when we go to seek health care. We go to the hospital. And so what these Republican governors and what the GOP is doing is they are sending this message of power to people who feel powerless. So everybody in America can say, well, I'm really lucky because I'm not like these. What makes me American is that I'm not like these undocumented folk, right? So in a sense, they're constructing this idea of what it means to be American that is now based not just on, the 4th of July and, the civil rights movement and everything, but also the fact that we are documented and they are not. Does that make sense? Is that,
no.
I think that to me is what's going on, is that they're trying to build this sense of solidarity among people who are confused about why their country is in decline by giving this message of superiority. Yeah. You're better than those people are, and therefore, and you can see it because of the way we can treat these people by putting them on a bus and shipping them wherever we want to, putting them in cages if we need to. Right.
Let me start, give you a chance to commence this answer now. We'll continue on the other side of news, traffic, and sports in less than 2 minutes here. But since we're talking about these Republican governors, I've had this conversation, ad infinitum, ad nauseum on this program about black folk in this regard. Let's talk about Latino folk in this regard. How do you process them that many Latinos, many Cubans certainly, and beyond in Florida vote for people like Ron DeSantis? They vote across the country for people like Donald Trump. I mean, look at the numbers. How can you explain that? Let me just put it that way.
Well, there's a deep conservative streak in Latino culture and among Hispanic voters. Always has been. Mm-hmm. Very Catholic, evangelical, people who believe in traditional definitions of the family, very much opposed to gay marriage and LGBTQ rights. And so that every big Latino family has at least one crazy conservative. Sorry if that's you listening. We have like one uncle or aunt who espouses those views at a family gathering. And it's just part of the reality of the Latino community, is that it's very diverse in its ideas. Having said that, I think that even many of the more conservative elements of the Latino community are outraged and sickened by some of the things they see happening on their television.
Yep. I hope you're right about that. I trust and believe that you are, but it is troubling for me when I see polling data sometimes that suggests the percentages of people in the Latino community who voted for, support Donald Trump, and DeSantis and others. I digress on that for the moment. When we come forward, we'll continue our conversation after news, traffic, and sports with the author, the Pulitzer Prize-winning author of the new book, Our Migrant Souls, a meditation on race and the meanings and myths of Latino. As I promised, we will get to decoding this term Latino after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Today is the 7th anniversary of the Pulse nightclub massacre in Florida. A gunman killed, 49 people and injured 53 more. Their lives will be commemorated with an event in Orlando tonight. The shooting is the deadliest incident in the history of violence against the LGBTQ community in the United States. African-American rapper Kanye West is being sued over a photo he posted on social media. West recently criticized an editor at Vogue named Gabriella Carifa Johnson and posted her picture to his Instagram account, making comments about her appearance. According to legal documents, the photograph he used was taken by a professional photographer, Michaela Efford, who says she doesn't allow her work to be used by other people. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Troubles for East LA now as you take that 5 north at Dittman, Indiana. Stalled vehicle in a center traffic lane loaded up from Lakewood Rosemead. Somebody broken down at Atwater Village, Los Feliz on the 5 south at Los Feliz Boulevard. They're in the center divider. That is slowed the drive as far back as Burbank Boulevard. Granada Hills, Sylmar. It's troubles on the 5 north at Roxford. A wreck in the second lane from the left there. Looks like somebody might have struck a tire that was in traffic lanes. Cerritos, a top from earlier, still working the 91 east at Norwalk Boulevard. Carpool lane blocked with a solo spin out. That vehicle's facing sideways. We are busy here from at least the 605.
Summit Racing wants you to gear up your truck or Jeep for your next off-road camping adventure. With millions of parts in stock, you'll find off-road and outdoor essentials so you can camp confidently and comfortably. SummitRacing.com. Everything you need for anything you drive.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
History is not on the side of the Miami Heat. 36 teams have been down 3-1 in the NBA Finals, and only one has fought back to win the championship. LeBron did it in 2016 when he was with Cleveland. He helped the Cavs bounce back and beat Golden State for the title. The Denver Nuggets are up 3-1 on Miami, and they're at home tonight for Game 5. Everything is in the Nuggets' favor to close it out and win the first championship in the franchise's 56-year history. Tip-off tonight at 5:30 on ABC. The WNBA is considering major changes in how their teams travel after Brittany Griner was harassed over the weekend inside the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. The slumping Dodgers are back in L.A. after a 2-4 road trip. They are 2-6 in their last 8 games. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
When you're young, life is full of choices. Don't let opioids like highly addictive and deadly fentanyl take away your life and your choices with just one wrong pill. Addiction is a disease that can affect anyone at any age, but there is a choice to get help for this disease. Find medically proven treatment options, including virtual, at choosemat.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here for KBLA Talk 1580. We're live in Los Angeles at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. And I'm speaking to some of the attendees today to see why it was so important for them to be here.
Yeah, this is Lathan and Tyler. Main reason that's very important for me to be here is just to leave a legacy for my kids. Black wealth, generational wealth is what we need in our community, you know. Oh, Chase, someone has to take the lead. They're showing, big business like Chase cares, and they're putting their money where their mouth is at. So it's good to see, big institution like Chase, giving a lifting hand, to the community, and you got to respect that. It makes me want to bank with Chase, and give them another look if I go to another institution. I actually see what Chase is doing for the community.
That's right, Chase is doing their part to help advance Black wealth. For more money support, tune in every day from 12 to 2 to KBLA Talk 1580's Midday Money Chain, right here.
Are you a small or micro business owner looking for ways to succeed after the pandemic? LA County has got you covered. Gain access to economic opportunity grants and technical assistance to help your business thrive. Whether you need mentorship or capital investment programs, they're here to help. Find out if you qualify at recovery.lacounty.gov/programs. That's recovery.lacounty.gov/programs. LA County and you, moving forward together.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, can potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
Hey! Taste the bitter love. 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 I can't feel for you or tell you what to do. It's something you've got to understand. It's out of my hands. Sorry won't do. Begging, please. It won't be through with you until you're on your knees. You feel like crying. You feel like crying.
It's more of the music of Gladys Knight. All 3 hours of our program today, we are featuring the brilliant work, musical contributions, grand contributions of one Gladys Knight as we celebrate June being Black Music Month. Every day a different artist we feature on this program, and today Gladys Knight is our artist in residence, if you will. We celebrate the giftedness of one Gladys Knight. Love her, love her, love her. We continue our conversation now, though, with the author Hector Tobar, the Pulitzer Prize-winning author Hector Tobar. His new book is called Our Migrant Souls, a meditation on race and the meanings and myths of Latino. The book is just out, and I'm honored to have LA's own Hector Tobar on this program. Hector, as I mentioned earlier, we were talking earlier on today's program with Randall Kennedy about a piece that he wrote for the Times, New York Times, called "The Truth Is Many Americans Just Don't Want Black People to Get Ahead." Here you come in this hour, and if I hear you correctly, your viewpoint, as expressed, of course, in this text in a variety of ways, is that there are many fellow citizens who see the Latino community undermining American society, as you put it. What unpack that for me? What exactly does that mean, that we see Latinos undermining American society?
Well, I think throughout this country's history, there's been these ideas of what the country should look like and what is good and bad, right? And so American society was segregated, officially segregated, still is kind of unofficially in some ways, because it was thought that better people lived in better neighborhoods and looked a certain way, and people who were criminals and poor lived in other neighborhoods. And so I think that kind of thinking is what shapes the way we think about Latino people. We think of them as these people who are inherently good at labor, not necessarily good at other kinds of jobs. And we treated them like people who don't deserve to be full members of American society. I mean, created all of these different categories of immigration. There are people who come on visas that allow them to pick apples or grapes for a season and then go back. There are people who have lived here, 20, 30 years working in construction and still are working without a real Social Security number because they're still undocumented. And so this country has just created all these categories, created this idea that we are the laboring foundation of this country, but doesn't really give us the credit for it. They just sort of live with this idea that Latino labor is something that they essentially take it for granted.
Mm-hmm. Beyond taking it for granted, I'm glad you raised this. Beyond taking it for granted, I'm wondering what you think we miss by getting the frame wrong when we look at Latinos as a laboring caste. Connie Rice was on our program earlier today as well, our regular contributor, and Connie always says, Tavis, get your frame right. Whatever you do in conversation, you have to get your frame right. So our frame,
great question.
Yeah, our frame of the Latino community is, as you said correctly, a frame in which we see this community as a laboring caste. What do we miss about the contributions and beyond of this community by only seeing them in that frame or through that particular lens?
Well, one thing we miss is our interdependence on one another.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have this idea that that you go into your average white suburban neighborhood and it's just perfectly manicured lawns and trees that are sculpted, and bushes that are sculpted, and bathrooms and kitchens that are clean, and you don't realize that when you see that, you're looking at the labor very often of immigrant people who work to cut the lawns, keep the roofs from leaking, and do all this labor to keep it going. So we're interdependent on one another.
Mm-hmm.
But also what you're missing is the richness of the Latino experience. The Latino experience is this multiracial experience. There are Latino people who are of African descent, who are Afro-Latinos. There are Latino people who are Jewish. There are Latino people who are, like me, mestizos. We have indigenous ancestors, and indigeneity shapes the way we look, and very often our spirituality and our worldview. And so people are missing all of that when they have these stereotypes about us. They're missing just how complex and beautiful our families are.
Mm-hmm. This book, if it is about anything, it is fundamentally about you taking the opportunity in the book, Our Migrant Souls, to decode the meaning of Latino as a racial and ethnic identity in the modern United States. So let's talk about that now. Help me decode this term. You probably heard me say earlier that yours truly and many people listening right now want to be politically correct. We want to make sure that our language is right. And we know that over the years, with regard to a variety of communities, there are certain monikers that we once gave them that we don't use those monikers anymore. But when it comes to this community writ large, many of us find ourselves not knowing whether to say Latino or Chicano or Hispanic or Latinx. And again, your book is a much deeper treatise than that. But I'm wondering if, as you address this notion of decoding the meaning of Latino, you'll address that as well. The microphone's yours, sir.
Yes. Well, first of all, I want to say that the title of my book, Our Migrant Souls, is a very subtle, maybe not so subtle, nod to W.B. Du Bois and the souls of Black folk.
Oh, yeah.
And so in that book, written, turn of the century, of the last century, W.B. Du Bois tries to explain and decode the Black experience to people who have this very kind of caricature idea, stereotypical idea of who Black people are. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, when we talk about terms, who Latino people are is a really, really complicated story. Right. And so for me, Latino is a really useful term because, for example, my wife is Mexican-American or Chicana. I am of Guatemalan descent. Our kids were born in Los Angeles, which makes them Angelinos. But instead of calling themselves Guatemalan, Mexican-American, Chicano, Angelinos, they can just call themselves Latinos. So, Latinos is this expression of an alliance.
Yeah.
It's an alliance, like American Indian is, right? American Indian is the Navajo and the Hopi and the Iroquois and all these different nations that have this solidarity against the experience of European colonization. And so Latino is an expression of this solidarity of people who've taken this journey. And it's useful in that way. Mm-hmm. Now, and it started, the way we use it now, started in the 80s when you had Puerto Ricans and Mexicans working together in cities like Chicago or New York. And suddenly the term, they would call themselves Puerto Ricans or Mexicans, but when you're working together, they use this term, and they liked Latino because it's a Spanish language term. It's something that sounds like home, like a word you might use at home, unlike, to many people, Hispanic. Hispanic refers to the Spanish language. And so to a lot of people, that felt like an imposition. So to us, to me growing up, I had not heard the word Latino. I had not identified as Latino before in the 1980s when I was in my 20s. And it was then that I heard this term started to spread and I used it. Nowadays, and then we came up with the term Latinx because Latino, all nouns in Spanish have gender. They're either masculine or feminine. And so Latino is a masculine sounding noun, although in Spanish, masculine nouns can also refer to people who are not masculine, but whatever, that's another thing. And so people came up with Latinx so as not to offend those people who are, who don't identify with the male gender or with the gender at all. The problem with that is that only 4 or 5% of the people in the country who could call themselves Latino or Latinx use Latinx, right? So it's still very much a college campus kind of term, right? And as I say in my book, the greater problem for me with Latino is that it's a European term. So Latino comes from the word Latin, obviously, and it suggests that we have these roots in these Latin countries where Romance languages are spoken, specifically Spain, right? That we have these roots that go back to this Latin country. But most Latino people have not just European and Spanish, blood in them. They also have the DNA of the indigenous peoples of the Americas, of African American people, of Afro-Latino people, and so it really hides the black and brown parts of our identity. Yeah. And so it's, to me, the best thing is to be patient when we talk about where we come from and allow ourselves to explain. I'm not just a Mexican kid from South Central, but I'm also, my mother is Salvadoran, my father's Mexican. My sister married an African-American guy, and we consider this African-American family part of our family. And so I think we really should take time when we're describing personally to our friends and family what and who we are. Take time to recognize how complex and how diverse your average American family can be.
Nope, it is complex, it's diverse, and I'm glad you took time to unpack that for me. When we come forward, I want to talk about white insecurities and economic exploitation. I'll explain when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
It's our anniversary.
Every weekday during the month of June, we're giving away gear from the KBLA.store to say thank you for your support of KBLA Talk 1580 as we celebrate our 2nd anniversary. Each weekday, a different host will be giving away fresh merch to one lucky caller. All you have to do is keep it locked to KBLA Talk 1580 throughout the day, and our host will tell you when to dial in and when. It's our way of showing appreciation to you for helping make KBLA Talk 1580 the most trusted, credible, and reliable source of information for listeners just like you. Here's hoping you'll be one of our lucky winners. But you can always head over to the KBLA.store anytime for the best in KBLA Talk 1580 gear for yourself and great gift ideas. Now, celebrating 2 years of being your go-to, we're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
Did you know that all City of LA renters have rights? Check out these 3 facts. Residential tenants can't be evicted without reason or just cause. Eviction protection still exists for unpaid COVID-19 rental debt due before March 31st, 2023. And you have 5 days to respond to an eviction notice. 5 days. Many Angelenos may be at risk of losing their home, and that's why we want you to know your rights. Learn more at housing.lacity.org. Be informed, be protected, be at home.
Ready for an unforgettable experience this Juneteenth weekend? I'm Queen Mother Nina Womack, inviting everyone to my multimedia arts exhibit called Wayusi, The Legacy of Slavery and Freedom. Experience African culture, Black art, live performances, keynote speakers like Dr. Melina Abdullah of Black Lives Matter LA and more. See The Door of No Return, an 18th century slave dungeon relic from Ghana. Produced by Transmedia 360, sponsored by the Department of Mental Health, Cal Mesa, and Take Action for Mental Health LA, running June 16th through the 18th at ArtShare LA, 801 East 4th Place, 90013 off of 4th Street, 1 block east of Alameda in the Downtown Arts District. Get your tickets at legacyofslavery.com or call 877-594-1292.
I switched to Boost Mobile and got a free Samsung Galaxy A23 5G phone. Want to know the best part?
It was free?
Nope.
The fact that it's on America's largest 5G networks?
Nope. It's the ding.
Oh, yeah. Love the ding.
Right? It's all about the ding. It's the dingarooski, the dingaroner, the ring-a-ding-ding.
Unleash your power to save with Boost. Get a free Samsung Galaxy A23 5G phone when you switch. Boost Mobile. Unleash your power.
And the ding.
Limited time offer. New customers only. Available on select networks. 5G not available everywhere. One device per line. Tax excluded. Additional restrictions apply. See your local Boost Mobile store for details.
Interrogating your assumptions and expanding your inventory of ideas. Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to Hector Tobar on KBLA Talk 1580. His new book is called Our Migrant Souls, a meditation on race and the meanings and myths of Latino. We were just unpacking, decoding that word moments ago. I'm watching my clock here, Hector, and I want to advance this conversation to talking about the ways in which, and again, you unpack this in the text, but the ways in which, how might I frame this? The ways in which white insecurities are at the epicenter or undergird the travail and the challenge that the Latino community is up against even as we speak. And then I want to talk about this notion of economic exploitation. We sort of tiptoed around it earlier, but I want to come directly to that in a moment. But just talk to me first of all about this notion of white insecurity. Again, I go back to earlier in this show today, where white insecurity is at the center of the fact that many Americans don't want to see black folks succeed. And here we are on the verge of this Supreme Court decision ending a corrective program like affirmative action. They don't want to see, many, not all, don't want to see us advance. Well, that same white insecurity underpins what the Latino community is up against. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, it's been something that Latino people have faced ever since white people came and took the Southwest in the middle of the 19th century in the Mexican War. In my lifetime, I remember Proposition 187. Proposition 187, you're reminding your viewers, was this ballot initiative to deny services to undocumented immigrants, and would have denied undocumented immigrants the right to go to public schools. It was eventually overturned, right, by the courts, but that was an attempt to keep California white, because in that time, in the 1980s and 90s, there had been so much migration. It was changing the feel of California. A city like Los Angeles, Spanish was becoming almost the dominant language of the city. And so that was causing a lot of insecurity, a lot of, anxiety among all residents of the state. And so something like Proposition 187 was passed. And I just think that that's behind a lot of these immigration policies. It has to do with people who feel less secure about their economy, less secure about their country, and looking for ways in which they can lash out and ways in which they can explain to themselves why things are wrong, why things are going south.
Yeah. I don't mean, let me pivot now to talk about economic exploitation. These things are obviously not disconnected. White insecurity and economic exploitation, clearly not disconnected, Hector, as you well know. But again, I don't want to be too didactic about this, but if I were to frame what black folk are up against economically, I'd frame it this way, that in every single leading economic indicator category, black folks still lag far behind white folk in every single leading economic indicator category. For all that we've done, for all the time that we've been here, brought here against our will, we still lag far behind in every economic category. I would call that, for the sake of this conversation, economic deprivation. What I see the Latino community experience more often than not is economic exploitation. You take that distinction, and if so, talk to me about the economic exploitation of the Latino community, even to this very moment.
Well, part of what the black community is facing is a century of policies that were designed to create a black underclass. And Ta-Nehisi Coates in his journalism has written a lot about this. About the way in which they spread money to white soldiers coming back from World War II, but not to black soldiers, and the redlining laws and all the things that happened in the 20th century. And so I think that has set the black community behind, and it's made them. It's become this permanent obstacle, kind of new Jim Crow, to overcome. The exploitation of Latino people is just that they are this labor force that is working in fields for very low wages. Part of what makes Latino immigrant workers exploitable is fear. So the idea that there's this wall that you can be deported over, it makes you easier to exploit by your employers. It means they can take advantage of you, not only by employers. I've talked to many immigrant women who get in relationships with Latino men who are citizens or legal residents, who, when things get kind of bad between them in their relationship, these men threaten to call the immigration service, the Border Patrol, on these women. And so immigration status becomes a way in which Latino people are exploited.
Yeah. A couple other things I want to get to before I lose you at the top of the hour in about 4 minutes here. Let me start with this. And there's not a deep passage per se about this in your text. This is not the focus of the book, but I do want to get your take on it, given that you are born and raised in L.A. And, of course, this is true across the country. But your take quickly on the black-brown dynamic in this country right about now.
Oh, my God. Well, you see, most brown people, most Latino people who move to this country move into traditionally black neighborhoods. So there is, on the level of the streets, this very powerful alliance, de facto alliance, where people live next to each other usually without many problems. Yes, it can be occasional kind of, outbreak of violence or misunderstanding or whatever. But generally speaking, I think that's the heart of it, And as I said, there's lots of mixing going on between these traditional groups. There's now this Blaxican identity. But beyond that, I think that as Latino people become educated, as they learn about how this country works, one of the lessons that you learn is that African-American struggle has shaped this country. The civil rights laws that we have, which are enjoyed not just by black people or Latino people, but also by gay people and Asian people and many other groups, these laws against discrimination were laws that were created thanks to black struggle.
Yep.
And I think, yes.
No, finish, please. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Hector. Please finish.
Yes, and so I think that a lot of Latino people are aware of that, and they see Black history as this example of how you live in America without a boot on your neck.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's a very, and so I think that, and in many places there is a very strong Black-Brown political alliance. In my book I visit New York, and New York Latino politics is essentially Puerto Rican and Dominican politics. Sure. And Puerto Rican and Dominican people grow up, in families that are Afro-Latino, and so there are these natural and very powerful alliances. The vote against Trump was almost absolutely, unanimous in Spanish Harlem and other places in the East Coast where there are Latino people.
I got 60 seconds here. What did you make of the Nuri Martinez tape? One of her deputies is now running for another seat on the city council. What did that do, as you see it, to black-brown relations in this city and largely across the country?
Well, it exposed the cynicism of certain Latino politicos who want to construct political machines in the same way that other ethnic groups have, in United States history. I'm delighted that they were exposed. I think most Latino people were embarrassed and angered, and leading the charge for these politicians to be removed from office. So I was proud of people in the Latino community for standing up and being outraged. I think that there are machine politicians come in all colors, in all creeds and faiths.
Yeah,
and they do the cynical things that they do, thinking that nobody's watching. But thankfully, in this case, somebody was listening and watching, and they got their just rewards.
Yep. In 30 quick seconds here, finally, the images of the Latino community in TV and film getting better, worse, or about the same?
About the same, getting better a little bit every time. But we need more Latino executives in Hollywood and in television and film.
Nope, couldn't have said it more succinctly. The book is called Our Migrant Souls, a meditation on race and the meanings and myths of Latino, written by the Pulitzer Prize-winning author Hector Tobar, who I've been honored to have had on this program for the hour. Hector, thank you for your time, man. Congrats on the book.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good to have you on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
80 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Pennsylvania, testimony is scheduled to resume today in the Tree of Life Synagogue massacre trial. Jurors on Thursday heard from a forensics expert testifying for the prosecution in the capital murder trial of Robert Bowers. Bowers is accused of killing 11 worshipers at a Pittsburgh city.
Food to your household, they can't